In to control coronavirus in England's care homes will be eased next week. From Monday, people returning from hospital will have to isolate for 10 days, not 14, and residents will be allowed unlimited numbers of visitors. Nadja Ahmed is head of the National Care Association.
When is the right time to do any of this? But I think it's as good a time as any. We need to try and create some normality back into care homes, because the impact of this on people who are not seeing their loved ones has been enormous. And how long can we carry on limiting that?
Prince Andrew has denied being a close friend of the convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. His lawyers also say he wants to go before a jury in the US, where Virginia Giuffre is suing him for sexual assault. He categorically denies the claims. Joshua Rosenberg is a legal expert.
It was Virginia Giuffre who asked for a jury trial, indeed demanded a jury trial in her claim. And so what you've really got here is Prince Andrew saying, bring it on. You want a jury trial? I want a jury trial. You want to bring these claims? Well, in that case, you have to prove everything that you're saying, because I'm not going to admit to anything.
The Sue Gray report into lockdown parties in Downing Street and Whitehall is being checked by human resources and legal teams before it's sent to Number 10. Some Conservative MPs are waiting for the report before deciding whether to try to oust Boris Johnson. There are new rules for people claiming universal credit. Job seekers will now have to look for roles outside their preferred field after just 4 weeks, rather than 3 months. The government wants 500,000 more people in work by the end of June. Face coverings in England are no longer mandatory, although many shops and transport services will still be asking customers to wear one. Masks are still required by law in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And the competition watchdog will investigate the music streaming market to make sure it's working well for consumers. The inquiry will also look at the role played by record companies and whether musicians get a fair return. Tom Gray is from the band Gomez and started the Broken Record campaign.
During the pandemic, we've lost about 70,000 jobs in the music business. And the vast majority of those are music creators. And, that's because musicians cannot rely on their income from recorded music. They've got to rely on live music. Just not enough of the money makes it into the pocket of the people who make the music, and songwriters do worst of all.
That's the 5 Live News at 9:02.
Very much, Jill. Right, he's the man who's altering his microphone and he's shifting his body language and he's ready to go. That's you, Christopher. You're ready to fly. You're ready to shoot. What's happening?
Well, I've got all eyes on the first of the women's semi-finals at the Australian Open tennis, Nicky, and the Aussie fans will be in raptures right now. You can follow this live on 5 Live Sports Extra. They are all trained on Ash Barty, the reigning world number one. She's been the world number one for 2 years in total, 104 weeks. Never got as far as the Australian Open final. She's a 2-time Grand Slam winner, and she's 4-1 up on Madison Keys in the first set, so it would be a popular victory if the world number one Ash Barty can come through that. As I say, it's over on Sports Extra. A little bit later, we'll bring you the second of the women's semi-finals with the 2020 French Open champion Iga Świątek of Poland, still a teenager, up against Danielle Collins, the American, and neither of them have ever reached the Australian Open final.
BBC 5 Live.
The voice of sport.
Surfs down the tee, slap back on the forehand side. She's done it. Game, set and championship won for Naomi Osaka. She has won 4 Grand Slam titles.
Australian Open tennis, live from Melbourne. Listen right now over on Radio 5 Sports Extra via the BBC Sounds app. BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
NICKY CAMPBELL.
Listen live, pause, rewind and discover with the BBC Sounds app.
Well, a very good morning. Thank you for being there this morning. It's the nation's phone in. Is it time to get a job? Any job. You can't be picky, because this was announced yesterday by the Prime Minister, who described it as a fantastic plan. He said in the House of Commons yesterday, we're launching a plan tomorrow. It's operative from next week. We're launching a plan tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, to get 500,000 people off welfare and into work. It's a fantastic idea. Of course, there will be those cynics who say it's less about your job, more about his job. But anyway, let's talk about this, because this affects an awful lot of people. And people are going to have to look outside their chosen field, out with their skill set, after just 4 weeks rather than 3 months, or face sanctions. We're going to get into the market today, the jobs market. Job vacancies high, unemployment low. The message is chefs, get onto the building site, office workers, get into the Amazon warehouse, mechanics, get a job in the care home, accountants, get into that delivery van, or there will be sanctions. You can't be picky. Thing is, jumping, and this will have support from people. It's the famous Norman Tebbit thing back in the 80s, isn't it? You know, my father, he lost his job, he went out and looked for work. He got on his bike. And there will be people, and there are people saying this is a fantastic motivational legislative change, which will get people moving into the jobs market and into jobs, so it gets the economy moving. But is jumping into an unskilled job you aren't trained for just a short-term sticking plaster? Think of the skills that you'll lose. If you're not keeping active in the area you trained in, no time to look for a better opportunity. You're working all hours in low-paid jobs to make ends meet. 3 months might mean you can get a bit of training in a new field to set up for the future. So if you're looking for work, get in touch. If you've got a job, how long did it take? How easy is it to get a job out there at the moment? We hear there are so many vacancies. Is the job you have the job you trained for? If you're on a short-term contract, what will this mean to you? And if you're an employer as well, what about filling those vacancies? Do you just need bums on seats, workers in the warehouse, or have you not got the resources to train people up from scratch? There are complications. Is it time to get a job? Any job? That's what we're doing.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Call free 08085 909 693. Text 85058. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. Message on WhatsApp 08085 909 693. Visit bbc.co.uk/5live terms for our terms of use.
Got John, who runs a coffee shop in Elephant and Castle. Good morning, John. Hi, how are you doing this morning? Are you there, John? Checking. Hello, John. We'll get John in a moment. Rebecca's in Norfolk. Morning, Rebecca.
Morning, Nicky.
How are you?
Yeah, okay, thank you. How are you?
Fine. What do you think of this plan? Well, first of all, tell us your situation. Tell us what's going on in your life.
So my situation is I'm a single working mother, and so I actually did, just as Rishi had told me, I had to retrain. So I'd worked for maybe 20-odd years in the hospitality industry. I still do that temp work now to supplement my income, but I had to retrain as a carer to get a job. And I was very fortunate that that my employer was very kind and, very understanding. But I don't think this is a good idea. I mean, I'm all for people retraining if that's what they wish to do, but you've got to understand that many people come to Universal Credit for many different reasons. Often, something terrible has happened in their life. Maybe they've had a relationship breakup, maybe they've lost a job, maybe, lots of many things, and they need sometimes time to just readjust and sort of get back on their feet again. And forcing people into just any old work is not going to help them with their well-being. More importantly, I think people should be given opportunities and training and caring and understanding. This punitive measures idea is not, I don't know, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's what a kind society should be doing to its most vulnerable.
But there are loads of jobs out there, we hear, and it's a matter of getting to people to focus their minds. This is the argument, and the Prime Minister's been lauding this. Let me just read some other stuff. The Work and Pensions Secretary Therese Coffey says, helping people get any job now means they can get a better job and progress into a career. That's a view. She says, way to work is a step change in our offer to claimants and employers, making sure our job centre network and excellent work coaches can deliver opportunities. They say they're putting more money into the work coach scheme as well to help people. It's about prosperity to all areas of the country, she says. So can I ask about a little bit more about your life? What led you into the situation that you went on to Universal Credit, Rebecca?
Yeah, I can't talk too deeply about it, Nicky, I'm sorry, but basically there was a big change. I had to move across the country and start again fresh, and so I didn't have and I don't have family here, so just sort of starting again from the very, very beginning. And so when I was in university, actually I started on working tax credits, but for the purposes of this conversation, if I had gone straight on to universal credit, I would have needed time. So as it was, I started at the beginning and I volunteered and I did some training. Even though I've worked in hospitality for a long time, my confidence had been hit. So I had to do some training to get my confidence back up, to then get a volunteer cafe job, to then work in that cafe, to then build myself back up again slowly. And I believe that there'll be many people who have similar situations. I appreciate what the government is saying, what Theresa Coffey is saying, that, working is empowering you and that, you should just go out and get whatever job so that you can, have money. But I think if like the benefit system was there to support those who are most vulnerable and give them a bit of a cushioning time, a bit of support whilst they got themselves mentally and emotionally.
Well, listen, you've made some really important points, and I'm sorry to pry. I respect your wish not to go too, because people, there are so many complications, aren't there? I'm going to bring in Laura as well, who is in... Where are you, Laura? I can't see it on my screen. Southampton. We got it. What do you think of this, Laura?
Well, I'm one of these, I'll do any job I'm physically able to do. I know numerous people out there who will do that, but there's a lot of circumstances to come with this. You've got to find a job in your range for 4 weeks. It all depends on your mental health state, your confidence, and all of that is built inside of it. And I know a lot of people who want to be doing care work, and it's all about the experience. How are you meant to get the experience within 4 weeks to go into that kind of role you want to do?
Yeah. So what about your own situation?
I'm quite lucky at the moment. I have got a job and I love the role I do, but I am very aware that my contract is up this year, so I will be back to looking for a different job, different role. But I'm happy to do anything I am able to do. I know a lot of people say you need to have the training to do this, you need to have the training to do that. Do you really have to have the training? Do you have to have all this relevant paperwork to go alongside it? If you know you're able to do it because you've done it in different places and you haven't had the qualifying level 2s, 3s, whatever to go alongside with it, why should you be discriminated against getting that job?
Ideally, what would you like to do?
I'm not fussy long as I pay my bills. I love the role I do now where I'm helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I'm along the lines of helping people, I'm happy with it. Or if I go in to do cleaning again, I'll happily do that because my bills are being paid.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Paying the bills. Yeah. Rebecca in Norfolk. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
What about this idea?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think, if you're able and willing to go and just do any work, then that's fine. I think the most important thing that I forgot the lady's name, but she was talking about there was that you have to be of the right mindset. You have to be ready to do it. It's what I don't like is the idea of these sanctions. So, what if you can't find a childminder to look after your toddler? And so you can't go and get a job, then you get sanctioned and then you wouldn't have any money. There are many permutations that could lead people to not be able to just pop into any old job. And I think that punishing the most vulnerable is not the way to encourage them. I think what they need is support and encouragement, like support, training, confidence building workshops, I don't know, help writing their CVs, that sort of stuff. They don't need get a job or else. Okay,
some interesting, powerful views outlining the complexities of all this and things that are, people's lives are never quite what they might seem on a spreadsheet. John, what do you think of it? We've got John now, coffee shop owner in Elephant and Castle. Hello, John.
How you doing? It's called Black Cowboy Coffee at Elephant and Castle.
You go for it, John. What do you think of this idea?
Well, as I spoke to you this morning, or was it somebody else that mentioned, I did mention in my earlier program about the Norman Tebbit comment when I was a younger man. Back in those days, you didn't have to be politically correct, and I prefer people to, shoot from the hip and just speak as they mean.
You shoot from the hip, John. That's fine. This is what this program's all about.
Exactly. So I thought at the time, it was, even though people disagreed with him at the time, I think it did help my psyche at that particular time, because he suggested, fine, this is not working, try this, it may work for you. So it worked for me at the time, because I've gone through so many different kinds of jobs or careers to get to this particular point, because I was still thinking of that. It's actually similar to what my dad would have suggested to me, or my grandfather would suggest to me. Get what you need to keep your head above water. Do it. You might learn new things. So in this day and time, it might seem a bit insensitive, considering that we've just been through COVID-19. But I believe we need to just basically just do it. We've got to be able to get the economy back on track. We've got to get money into people's pockets and get people's self-esteem a bit more on the up.
It's good for people's self-esteem. Do you think people at the moment, for whatever reason, are too picky? They're hanging on too long for the job that they want rather than the job that they actually need?
Well, I think it's also due to the fact that people have been at home for too long. It may lead to some laxity in their opinion of themselves. So they may think, okay, I don't want to do that because, I've been able to survive for 1 year or 2 years, just because of COVID-19. But in order for us to come back up as an economy, everybody has to chip in. I mean, if they're giving enough support, if they give enough support for small businesses like me, I'm willing to, there's jobs. I've got jobs for people to, barista jobs. As a single parent, I haven't actually been able to take care of my kids properly, but I've just put up a job advert in the last couple of weeks, and I've had 3 people coming in, and I'm now training people to do the jobs of baristas, so I'm able to take my son to school in the mornings. So I don't see where this could fail. I don't see the way it's going to fail.
Well, tell me about the quality of the applicants. It's no mean feat being a barrister or a barista. both of them.
Barista.
A barrister becoming a barista and a barista becoming a barrister. This is what it's all about. So it's no mean feat. How long does it take, that training, and what are the quality of the applicants like?
Well, I've got 2 people moving on from a different coffee shop. I've got to give them training for the next month just to keep bring them back up to speed to the kind of machines they use. I've got 2 other young people from the schools around that I'm dedicating 2 months to train them up. So it's not. Yeah, it's going to be painful in the beginning, but at least it's something. People are, you got to move forward. You can't keep standing still, otherwise the grass will grow around you. You got to move forward.
You got to move forward. You can't keep standing still, otherwise the grass will grow around you. That's quite a phrase to take with us. Ellie Mae O'Hagan from the Class think tank. Hello, Ellie Mae.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Henry Hill is there from Conservative Home. Hello, Henry.
Good morning.
It'd be good to hear a civilised conversation between yourself and Ellie Mae. Tell us why you think essentially this is good. I mean, you heard there from John, if you stand still too long, the grass grows around you. Is that your essential view?
I mean, my view broadly is that the purpose of the unemployment support system is to get people back into work, and that the government, especially if we have areas where there are shortages, it seems perfectly sensible for the government to try and structure that system in a way that encourages people to consider jobs in those sectors. Now, it's important that this is not just stick, that, if we want people to, for example, move into HGV driving, there is support there to make sure that they get adequate training to do it, rather than just, theoretically cutting their welfare if they refuse to take jobs they can't really do. But in principle, the idea that the unemployment support system should be steering people towards where the jobs are, rather than just keeping people on the dole until such time as a job in an area they're already comfortable with comes up, seems perfectly defensible to me.
It's a big psychological shift necessary for some people, isn't it, all this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why building that in structurally is important, because if you say if I lost my job, I've been working as a journalist for a long time, and I would probably try and find another job in that sector for a very long time. And it might be that if that wasn't available for whatever reason, I might need a push in the right direction. And so that's why.
How would you feel about a push onto the construction site?
If that was where the jobs were, I'm not saying I'd be thrilled about that. That's not really the point. But if that's where the jobs were,
what if
and
you feel you're
find
not
a job
cut
in the
out?
sector,
You're not cut out for it. You might be in a situation that that's just not me. I can't.
Well, I don't think that would be an adequate defence. I think we certainly shouldn't be pushing people towards jobs that they have, a legitimate reason that they can't do, for whatever reason. But I fundamentally don't think that that's just not me is a good reason to allow someone to continue claiming welfare when they could be working.
Ellie.
Well, CLASS is a think tank that looks at working people's lives, so I have a lot to say on this issue. But
what do you think about what Henry
this.
said just there? That's just not me, is not adequate. When I go past a construction site, I think, blimey, look at those guys. I couldn't do that.
Look, the bottom line is this. I think most of your listeners, when they're hearing somebody like Rebecca, who was on universal credit because of her personal circumstances, most of your listeners will listen to a story like that and they will think, I want to give this person a helping hand. And that's what universal credit does for people like Rebecca. It gives them a helping hand when they need it the most. And what we're seeing with this announcement today is a prime minister who is attempting to punish people like Rebecca, who need that helping hand and who deserve that helping hand, to punish them in order to distract from his own failings, not just in terms of attending parties in lockdown and now being investigated by the police, but also in terms of presiding over an economic system that hasn't created good jobs for people. So, you had people on just now who were talking about care work. Well, at CLASS, we've looked at care work and we know that thousands of people who work in the care sector are being paid less than minimum wage and are on insecure contracts. And people are being let go from insecure jobs. And in fact, if you are under 25 in 2020, you were 3 times more likely to lose your job than if you were over 35. And if you were black and under 25, you were 9 times more likely. So this policy is going to discriminate against young people and ethnic minorities who are struggling in an economic system that isn't providing the basics for people. So what we actually need to do is to come together and demand better from this government in terms of creating the jobs.
Job vacancies
that
are high.
People make ends meet.
Unemployment is low. The country is skint. We've borrowed £400 billion to support people during the pandemic, Rishi Sunak argues. We have to tighten our belts. We have to encourage people to get out there into the jobs market, and they can't be picky. That's the argument here.
So I think what the pandemic showed us is that we're all connected and we all rely on each other. And when one of us loses out in terms of our income, that affects the rest of us. If I get fired tomorrow, I won't be able to go to my local shop and buy food anymore, and that shop will lose business. We are all connected. So when you actually cut people's benefits in a community, that hurts the whole community. It doesn't help our economic system. It doesn't help put food on the table. That actually hurts people. And what we need to do at this moment is give people a helping hand. And let me just also remind you of this. The government's own body, the National Audit Office, has said that a program of cutting people's benefits does not force them into work. There's no evidence that it works. So I just want to repeat the point that this is about punishing people to distract from the government's own failings. It's nothing to do with helping people.
Well, there is that, and but there's also the debate that we're having about jobs, and I alluded to that. I mean, whose job is this about? I did allude to that point at the beginning, what some people are saying. John, what do you think about that? Because you've got quite a kind of trad attitude on this.
Well, I think that's just a typical blame game when you start picking on government having parties and all whatnot. What they're trying to do is to actually ignore all that nonsense going on and get back into governing the country, getting people back to work. I just think that's a bit petty to use that against what they're trying to do. We're trying to get people back to work. Whether he had a party or he had singing I Get Do in the middle of the night, that's beside the question. We're trying to get people back to work. And the only way you can do it after spending so much money for the past 2 years, keeping people at home, is to give them an incentive. It may, it's a little bit of a nudge. Yes, it won't be for everybody, but it's got to be done. It's just the way of it's just life. You've got to find a way to move on so we can get the economy back into shape.
Henry?
I mean, fundamentally, the purpose of unemployment assistance is to get people back into work. I think a lot of the criticisms, levelled by the previous speaker have nothing to do with this system. Contract reform is a completely separate question and one that can legitimately be looked at. But we need to be honest with ourselves. If the purpose of unemployment assistance is not actually getting people back into work, basically as fast as possible, we should have an honest debate about reframing it as whatever else we want to call it. But it seems to me surprising, in fact, that this isn't already the case. I don't think there's any case for somebody claiming specifically unemployment assistance if they are not considering open vacancies in the economy, even if that's in a sector that they didn't necessarily work in previously, or don't necessarily want to work in. The whole purpose of this system, the reason we collectively provide this assistance for people, the terms, really, the sort of social bargain underpinning unemployment assistance that has underpinned it since the beginning, we used to call it job seekers allowance for a reason, is that it is there to tide you over until you can get back into productive employment. It is not there for you to sit on long term if there is a possibility of leaving it. Now, if there are people who, for whatever reason, can't get a job, that is, of course, a completely separate question. And I don't think that we should be conflating those two issues. People who can't work do deserve long-term support, but people who can work and simply aren't willing to consider a job in another sector, they need a little push.
Some texts. This might work for people not prepared to work, but for most of us, 4 weeks is not a realistic time frame, which will lead to highly skilled people taking low-skilled work. Encouraging people, this one says, of all backgrounds into work is a positive aid to integration in the UK. There is that and there is this. Quite a lot of people are saying what Ellie was saying. It's another smoke screen, another grey smoke screen. We get it. I heard somebody wanted to come in there, but I want to go to Matt. Everybody's welcome, of course, as ever, and I'll try and come back to you. Matt's in Surrey, James is in Huddersfield. Matt, what's your situation? And thanks for joining us.
Oh, hi, Nicky. Hi, thanks for having me. Over the last couple of years, I work in the travel industry, and I was a pilot, actually. And obviously, it's affected everyone, and this pandemic's been an absolute, disaster for just about everyone's been affected in some way. But the bottom line was, got a family, you've got to get out there and get some work. So I ended up working in a warehouse for a year. 9 to 5:30, 20-minute lunch break, completely different to what I was doing. But, we needed the money. And I think working is a state of mind. And, I think it definitely comes from, your parents and who you're surrounded by and what they instill in you growing up. And it doesn't matter what you do, you've got to get out there and do it because it's actually, better for your mind and everything else. So that was my thoughts anyway. Yeah,
well, listen, that's, extremely valuable. It's a matter of, your sanity apart from anything else, yeah?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it's like I say, it's a state of mind and it gets you integrating with other people. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You meet people from all different walks of life, but because you're doing the same thing and you're buying into the team ethos and going towards a common goal, whatever work you're doing, and it really helps. I think it really helps you in your life, and it helps you go forward.
Yeah, tell me about that. The psychological hurdles as well. I'm just thinking, I'm putting myself in your situation. I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. I mean, luckiest guy in the world. Did you always want to be a pilot? Was that kind of thing?
A bit later on in life, yeah, but I had a bit of a different life to start with, but but eventually, it was the thing I wanted to do, and so I went out there and did it, and my wife still tells me off for it now, but that's another story. But but you know, and there were lots of hurdles along the way. But I think resilience is a big thing, and like I say, it's so important to get out there and do anything. And if it's not quite right after the first few weeks, and you really can't stand it, then there's plenty of other stuff out there to do.
What was it like?
You've got to go out and give it a go.
What was that first day like? That first day in that new job?
It's okay. I've been into lots of situations before, and you know, you try and make people. I don't know. You just try and integrate the best way you can. I mean, they knew my story, so I didn't want them to judge me in any way. So you just get on, work as hard as anyone else, and offer to do things and all that. So, but it was good. You know, I got a lot out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, everyone's got a story. Were there other people in there who had to take an unexpected, had to make an unexpected kind of left turn in their life?
There weren't in this place, but obviously with everyone that I've worked in my industry, I don't think I've come across many people that haven't done many other things, you know, including work on the vaccination program and in the vaccination centres and lots of other things. You know, Ocado delivery drivers and Tesco. That seems to be a popular one, the delivery driver thing. So, but the warehouse worked better for me.
What now? What's happening now?
Well, I'm actually just back flying now, so it's quite good. Got the day off today, but it's nice to be back flying, and it really makes you appreciate the job that you've worked really hard to do. So
when you got back, did you feel, yes?
Yeah, I was a bit like a little kid, actually. You know, the people around me were like, "Why are you so excited about going to work?" I said, "Well, you know, because I've done other stuff, and I've realised this is actually a really, really good job, and it's really enjoyable, and you know, this is what you've trained to do." So,
what about some of your colleagues who lost their job in aviation because of the terrible things happening and the devastation of that industry? What other sorts of things did some of your mates and your colleagues and your friends?
Well, lots of them, you know, had to go to other countries to look for work. You know, literally up sticks with families and things like that, and then just basically get anything they could until, like I say, the industry starts picking up, which I think it is now, and fingers crossed it'll be a relatively normal summer. So
lift off, yeah,
hopefully.
Hopefully, James is with us too. James in Huddersfield. That's quite a story, isn't it? We've just lost James. Ellie Mae. I mean, you heard John. John, what was your phrase again? John in the coffee shop owner, right. Elephant guy. Yeah. Your phrase was, "If you stand still," just remind me, the grass grows around you. That was it, wasn't it?
Definitely, yes. And having listened to the last person, it kind of mirrors my life a little bit. I even had to go to America for a long time, and I was a truck driver for 9 years, driving around the United States and Canada, just to diversify my opportunities. And now I'm back here and I own a coffee shop. You can appreciate that every experience I had at every turn of my life, I'm now applying it to what I do now. So sometimes you need to move a little bit away from what you used to, or what you're supposed to be doing, to come back to what you normally do. So,
quick response, Ellie Mae, to what you heard from Matt and to what you heard from John there, who encapsulate and personify maybe that, get on your bike and get work because it's good for the soul, it's good for the mind, it's good for the bank account. I don't want to hang around doing nothing. What do you say to them?
Well, I think we need to remember that there's lots of different types of hard work. So not everybody does work that they're paid for. So some people, particularly women, spend their lives working to care for children and raise the next generation, working to care for elderly relatives, or perhaps working to heal from an illness, particularly over the last couple of years. So everybody, I think, does some kind of work, and most people care a lot about their work.
Do you admire Matt? Do you admire John for what they've done in their lives?
Well, of course I do. But I think, in terms of being a pilot and then working in a warehouse and then going back to being a pilot, I'm really happy that your caller was able to go back to the job that he loved. I'm very relieved to hear that. But we've got to remember that for the majority of people working in that warehouse, that's where they were working and that's where they would have stayed. And the likelihood is they would have been on insecure contracts and wages that were too low to make ends meet. That is the reality for millions of people in this country. So when we're talking about get a job, we have to remember that a lot of the jobs out there that are available for people are very insecure, so they're quite hard to keep, and they often don't allow people to put food on the table.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Ellie. Thank you to Matt and Henry and Rebecca and Laura and John. Some really... Sorry.
Yeah. Do I have time just to quickly say something before I go, or is it over?
I'll tell you what, it's not over yet. We're going to do another half hour of this fascinating conversation. If you want to stay, I'll get your point after the news, weather and sport. Is that okay?